Allison, and I'm here with the Baby Lock Solaris 2. The Solaris 2 is Baby Lock's top-of-the-line embroidery and sewing combination machine, and there's a lot to love about it. We have an embroidery field of 10 5/8 by 16 inches, and it comes with a hoop of that same size. We also have 13 inches of workspace to the right of the needle, and IQ Designer is built into this machine. Let's talk about the embroidery features first. When we work in the embroidery section, we can either bring in our own designs or we can work with one of the 865 different built-in designs. Now, when we choose a design, we have a lot of different editing features so that we don't have to worry about taking the design to a separate computer and working with it. All of my editing features are here on this main embroidery screen, and I can increase the size by 200%, and the machine will recalculate my stitches so that I don't have to worry about density issues when either increasing or decreasing the size. I have all the information that I need on the machine about my design, such as the size, as well as which hoop would work best to stitch this out. Wherever I move my design on my screen is where my design will stitch, and I can recenter it by simply touching a button. We can mirror image the design, copy it, or create a patch. Now, where this machine really shines is with the placement features. I'm going to take this design off of the screen and we're going to add a name. And now we're going to make a keychain. What we want to do is get the name that I type in on this webbing. Typically with embroidery projects, where people tend to have a difficult time is with hooping and making sure that they're getting their design placed in the correct spot on their project. With the Solaris 2, you don't have to worry about that at all. So with the design, what I want to do is make sure that I have this name sized and rotated in the correct position to stitch out on my webbing. In order to do this, we have a couple of different ways that we can check to make sure that we're getting everything placed exactly correctly. The Solaris 2 has a built-in camera, so it will scan the hoop so that we can see on the screen exactly what's in our hoop and what we're going to be stitching on. So now on the screen we can see the webbing and our design. I'm going to change the color of our design so that way we can see it a little bit easier. And I'm going to change the size and rotate my design so that it will stitch exactly where I want it to on the webbing. Now that I have the design exactly where I want it to be, I'm going to double check it with one other feature. The Solaris 2 has a built-in projector that's going to show me exactly where my design is going to stitch. And so on my project, I'm going to be able to see exactly where those stitches are going to line up, and I can tweak the project if necessary. And now all that's left to do is stitch. Now that you've seen how easy the Solaris 2 will make your embroidery, let's talk about the sewing features. When we work with the sewing section, the machine will automatically move your embroidery unit out of the way so we have all of this space to work with. And we can automate functions such as the backstitch. And when we get to the end of the row, when we touch the reinforcement button again, it'll give us the same backstitch as well as trim our thread and lift the presser foot. But no matter what type of stitching you're working with, we have very similar features to the embroidery side with our sewing. So when we're working with a stitch, we can set up some guide beams on our fabric so that we can make sure that we're stitching in exactly the right place. We can use that main line to follow our needle and the second line to follow our seam allowance. We can use it as a straight line, a grid, and we can adjust the size of that grid on our machine, on the bed of the machine. Or we can work with an angle, or we can turn it off. We also have several different color choices, so you can make sure that you have maximum visibility on your project. Now, if you're working with a decorative stitch and trying to decide exactly where to place it or which one is going to look the best, then we can also take a look at how that will be seen on your project after it stitches. With the same projector that we have in the embroidery side, the machine will show us exactly how this is going to stitch on our fabric, and not only that, but we can edit the stitches on our fabric. With the pen that comes with the Solaris 2, we can make several different adjustments. And what you'll notice is you'll see the adjustments on the screen and on the fabric itself. So I can change the width of the stitch and make it more narrow. And I can also change the length of the stitch. I can lengthen it and shorten it here just by touching the pen to the bed of the machine. Another great feature is I can actually change my stitch to see exactly what's going to look great on my project. So if I'm not sure that I want that stitch that I chose, I can scroll through and take a look until I find the one that's going to give me the perfect fit. Now, once I've found the one that I've fallen in love with, I also have a feature called endpoint sewing. The Solaris gives us the option to let the machine know where we want our stitch to end and stop stitching there at the end of that stitch. And there we have that beautiful stitch stopped in exactly the right place. So for your next machine, be sure to take a look at the Solaris 2.